Yeah, don't go to Cancun. And I look in the mirror and I go, oh shit, you ruined a video where we had to blow up a clock.
Any advice for upcoming cinematographers?
One of my biggest learners as a cinematographer was, yes, you are the photographer. Yes, you are the one who's putting the camera and saying which f-stop you shoot at and how the lighting's gonna be. But you got a team and you have to rely on your team. Try and be with people, surrounded with people that not only they're better than you, but they're as passionate as you and they know what they're doing. Trying to find your community, the people that you can work and create with.
Today, we've got Pato. He's a cinematographer from Mexico and one of the coolest guys here on screen at the moment. Maybe the coolest. So how did you end up in Birmingham? Where have you come from? The sunniest place and beautiful jungles of Mexico.
Well, where I'm from in Mexico is actually the mountains and it's considered semi-desert. There's a lot of sun though. But what made me come here was my partner's studying a master's in distribution film. We're both filmmakers.
Right.
I myself was a cinematographer. And back there, we finished our first feature film that we got the funding for. We pushed to finish it. We were in post-production. And at the moment, when we were in post-production, we say, great, now that we've shot our film and gathered all this money, we finished it, what do we do with it? Comes the real part of getting your film out there and distributing it and then showing it to the audiences, reaching the audiences. We had no clue how to do it.
That's a problem that is quite common in the Mexican filmmakers.
But the thing is that there's a big Spanish community, people who speak Spanish, not only in Spain, not only in America, because I mean, below the United States.
What language do you speak in Brazil?
Portuguese.
Portuguese.
Yeah, the rest of South America is Spanish. So there's a big market for content created in Spanish.
I see. But there's not as much distribution, I suppose.
There's not as much distribution. It's actually one of the top countries that go to the movies. But then again, they're not making money from that because they're paying off Avengers or they're paying off rom-coms or content that comes from here. There's a lot of content that flows from here, from Europe, to that content. No?
Yeah.
But the question is, why aren't we taking advantage of the big portion of market that we have?
I mean, what kind of content do Spanish-speaking people tend to prefer?
I think you'd be surprised. Rom-coms.
Like the novellas.
Yeah.
The telenovelas.
There's still novellas, yeah, but that's more on TV. That's what they would.
Yeah.
And being in Mexico, it would cringe about the styles and the aesthetic.
They zoom in and it's like...
But then seeing it from afar, it becomes like a language. It becomes a way of...
I've always found this really interesting.
Trying to get an emotion.
So you ever watched Ugly Betty?
Yeah.
That's in the style of those novellas, isn't it? I liked that when I was a kid.
I think that one is originally... That was an original production from Univision, which is broadcasted from the US. But the Spanish speakers, like that community living in the US, they made a couple of remakes in Colombia, and we have in Mexico our own remake of Betty, what's it called?
Ugly Betty.
Ugly Betty, yeah.
I started rewatching it during COVID and I was like, it wasn't quite the same. I think I was just watching it when I was a kid because there's 5 channels and you watch what you get. I was like, this is quite colourful.
And it would be entertaining. Oh yeah, I want to watch this.
You're talking about cinematography and things in Mexico, and you create these things and there's a high output, but it's not being it's not that easy to distribute. Now that you're in the UK, do you think that UK creatives or filmmakers could learn from the way things are done in Mexico?
It's a tough one because if you look at both industries, you just have to look at how much revenue each of the industries, like the Mexican film industry, has compared to the English industry or the UK industry. I mean, it would be like much less.
If the Mexican film industry were to have the amount of budget as the UK film industry, what do you think would come of that? What might come out from that?
Something real good about the IMCINE, which is like the BFI in Mexico, is that they have this program particularly meant for productions outside the capital, say here in London. The funding will go specifically for people producing outside of London or the capital. That just gives opportunity like ourselves, like creatives living outside the capital.
I would love some more funding in Birmingham, outside of the capital.
Exactly, trying to get more funding from the capitals to produce outside of the capitals, because there's stories being told here in Birmingham, in Nottingham, I don't know, in the East Midlands as well, up north. Just trying, and because the idea that you get up England will be
It's rarely Birmingham, isn't it? Yeah.
Oxford, exactly. It's not Birmingham. And surprisingly, Birmingham is the second biggest city in the UK.
Exactly, yeah.
When you should try and get like your idea of the UK should also
include that.
Yeah, include Birmingham.
Yeah, I suppose Birmingham's got quite a specific culture and a cultural identity, which I guess we don't see on TV as much.
But then again, I'm just comparing because from the short amount of time that I've been here in Birmingham, I haven't encountered this particular funding for productions outside London.
Yeah, would you say that's something we could definitely improve on then?
Probably the BFI doesn't have this distinction of if it's inside or outside, just gives you the funding regardless.
But I mean, a lot of that, I think, disproportionately. Some people have said goes disproportionately to London.
Probably because, for example, back in Mexico, they would be expecting productions outside of the capital to have the same budget and production in the capital, which makes no sense, right? Because everything, all the services, like I'm not going to say the crew, because also that we could learn a lot. Having a standardized fee for all of the creatives, they have it here.
Well, they don't have that in Mexico.
They do, but here is more solid.
Where
from they're more together.
Yeah, it's pretty solid, isn't it?
That element of it. So that basement, those foundations just are great. Yeah. Here also there's a big difference, and not only for Mexico, also the industry here is very established. So there's a very defined path that you have to follow. Whereas in Mexico, if you want to be a cinematographer, you don't go through that path because the industry, you could one day say, hey, I'm going to be a cinematographer. Yeah. And then you just start working as one and then get all the experience, create your reel, and then afterward you become similar in here. But here, because there's an industry, the path is marked, and you can
progress in a way that you can predict, that is predictable and makes sense.
And then later on you become the director of photography.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Although, could it not be better to, if you want to become a director of photography, start off as a director of photography in these sort of roughneck crews and learn that way? Then I suppose you're learning from the very beginning exactly what you want to do, as opposed to learning to be a runner, which it might give you some insight into certain things, into how to be a director or an assistant director.
I don't know if I call it that's better or worst.
Yeah.
It's just different. Because here, for example, you can start as a runner and then you become a second AC and then you jump into first ACing and then you stay there because you become the best. And you're the greatest focus puller and that's your profession. It could be that. I don't know. I just believe that different.
Is the working mentality here with film or anything else? I suppose I imagine, and I don't know much about Mexico or anything. I don't know shit about fuck, to be honest, about anything. But like, it's hot there, right? So I'd imagine that just factoring that in, not even including the way that the government runs differently, the community is different, the culture's different, would be different. I would think, in Spain you have a siesta in the middle of the day. It changes the culture and the way they work.
The whole thing.
So is the working mentality different in Mexico? Is it quite similar to here?
I think on sets and with creatives, it's very much alike. Like, people would know, even if it's from the lowest profile production, it's very similar. Yeah, very, very similar. When you're on the set, things that have to be done are the same. You have your electrician, you have your gaffer, you have your grip, and as I say, logistics
that's just the most effective way to make a film. As far as we know, I suppose it has to be the same.
Yeah,
different places.
It has to be the same, even though it's different place. But there is a different energy here. I find that they're open as well. They work more in this horizontal base where everyone is equal, even though like there's the director's got the last word, but they work together to get together. And I think
there's less hierarchy.
There's a bit more hierarchy on sets in Mexico.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So then we started looking at the possibilities of getting it done. And she said, hey, I want to study a master's in distribution. That seemed like the key. I'm back in Mexico, or none, 2 years ago. There were no programs in distribution for masters.
I see. So Birmingham is quite good for programs and stuff in this case.
In general, although surprisingly, Mexico produced more films in 2023. I think it was, more films than the UK. The thing is that the UK sells their films. They're present in the European film market, in Berlin, go to Cannes. So they've got, the BFI does the job of going to the markets and taking all this. And not only the BFI, the filmmakers themselves know that they have to go.
This runs into the exact problem that you've had of creating the film, but then how to distribute it.
One thing that I would say they could learn, sharing experience from the industry.
Are you talking about the output of films and things in Mexico. Now, besides Ugly Betty and novellas, a lot of the things that stick in my memory about Mexico are things to do with the narcos and things like that. What are your thoughts on that being one of the most recognized outputs from Mexican media and stuff?
It's just what sells.
Yeah.
You know, if it sells, then that's why it's out there. It really is not all there is.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got Alfonso Cuarón, that he shot Gravity. I think he won Oscars for Gravity.
I didn't even know that was a Mexican director.
He worked with Tilda Swinton as well, like the same director. Iñárritu, Birdman. So we've got Guillermo del Toro. He's also one of
Of course, yeah. Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah, Pan's Labyrinth, Pinocchio.
Yeah.
So there's
Love that.
much more films. I mean, there's those are only 3 that been in Hollywood working, and that's why we get to see their films. But there's lots of films, you know. The stories are out there. The only thing that there isn't, there's representation of those stories in the market, in the European film market, or in Cannes, or just in general in festivals.
Yeah.
So people can watch it. Also because of the language,
Yeah.
it's less likely that somebody will buy a film that's in Spanish and watch it with subtitles, because English is just an easy language to learn. No? English speaker people, they're not like French, that they'll get upset if you don't pronounce bonjour correctly. They'll go along, and that's why English is one of the most spoken languages in the world as well, you know?
I've never considered it that way. But so you'd say that English is quite popular because people that speak English are not so fussy about the way the language is spoken.
Absolutely. I just had that thought because of this thing talking about drug and the idea that they got on the exterior or outside from Mexico. One of the most popular films, the Oscars, was Emilia Perez. Touches all of those subjects it talks about, but really only on the surface.
Yeah.
Drug cartels, transgender. So it makes a musical. So it takes all of these topics and then just
I think what it is, I haven't seen that film, and I don't tend to watch films that the film's designed to hit these certain criteria that makes it an Oscar-worthy film.
They are.
So for me, if I see that a film's been in the Oscars or going to be in the Oscars, I don't actually give it a chance. Maybe I should work on that, because I'm like, I don't feel like I need to see this. But I saw one clip from, I think it was Emilia Perez. It's the musical, right? And what was it? Oh gosh. I don't remember. It was one musical clip of it, and she was walking through like this big hospital.
Oh,
but you know how the song goes?
It's awful, man. It's like little kids rapping.
I'd have to find the clips what they're actually saying.
The worst thing of it got nominations for best songs.
Really? Musicals are like not my bag, but like Wicked and stuff. I watched a clip from that afterwards. It's the obvious comparison, isn't it? And I think that came out the same year. I'm not into musicals really. I went to youth theatre and I think that ruined musicals for me a little bit. I watched that and I was like, well, I'm not into musicals, but this is great. It's objectively good. And then it cut to that one and it's like, who wrote this? Who wrote this?
The director, he's from France.
Yeah.
And this is where I'm going with the idea of the language. French are very the way you speak their language, no? And francophonie, and this is guy, seriously, I'm trying to communicate with you. Help me out here, you know? I'm trying to speak your language.
Stop being a pendejo.
Yeah. Well, that's Spanish.
That's a French. Mel de la tête. Mel de la tête. I don't know if people actually say it. Pendejo. That's my favourite, I think, swear word in another language. Pendejo.
Yeah, do you know what it means? I'll tell you what.
Pendejo.
I thought, no, but it doesn't mean that.
It doesn't mean, I thought it meant asshole, didn't it?
It literally is like a hair in the ass.
Oh, ass hair.
Ass hair. Yeah.
Pendejo.
Yeah.
It's good insult, man.
Yeah.
That's the lowest of the low.
Emilia Perez, so they grab all of these topics, put it into film, and then they go out onto the international market and they say, hey, this film is very colorful, like Betty La Fea, Ugly Betty, but none of it was shot in Mexico. It was all shot.
Is it set in Mexico?
Supposedly, because it's a drug
dealer. You notice the difference with things shot in the studio or not?
It was in the studio, everything shot in France. The director went on saying, you know what, Mexico isn't as appealing or as interesting as I can make it look on the set.
It's quite
it's bullshit, man.
Yeah.
It's like, man, seriously, it's like if I came to Birmingham and say, you know what, I think that's not vibrant enough, but I want to tell the story that's Broom.
For Peaky Blinders, I didn't really give it a chance at first because the accents were quite bad. It's great, actually. I quite like it, but the first season of Peaky Blinders, I was like, why they don't sound like they're from Birmingham?
And then these accents.
They film it in Manchester and Liverpool.
And it's got to do with the market. You know, those decisions. For example, Napoleon with Joaquin Phoenix. Like, to me, it was a pain watching it because Like I'm seeing this story of this French emperor speaking to me in English.
Yeah.
And then when he goes battle the English, he's speaking in English. Like,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
man, but
Why are you doing it like
why are
that?
you doing it like that? But then you have to understand the market.
I find those things
And
so
it's,
hard to watch.
it's like a logic of the market.
Yeah, what are more people going to enjoy? Not just what are you and I going to enjoy. But I mean, I completely agree. I like watching his stuff. Although like Rome, did you ever watch Rome? Yeah, God, that was great. They weren't speaking in Italian, but it probably would have been better if they were.
It's a Mexican film and it's called
What?
One. It
Oh.
is.
I'm talking about the TV series.
Ah,
I think it was BBC.
Yeah.
There's probably quite a few of those.
No, Roma.
Roma. Was it in Italian?
But Roma is Rome.
Yeah.
But no, it's not in Italian. Rome, yeah, you're right. The series.
Did you see that?
Confused. No, I haven't watched it. But I know this.
I think like with anime, you get the dubbed version and the subtitle version. See, I find the dubbed versions are getting better these days. But if it's an action-based thing, I usually prefer the dub, even if it doesn't sound as authentic as the subtitles. Because I want to watch the actual fighting that's going on.
Yeah.
Something that's more like a drama or more about what they're saying,
Yeah.
then it's got to be subtitled. It's got to be the original language. That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
To feel engaged with the thing, you know?
And then you can make it try and then do it. For example, Andrew Brody just won the Oscar for Best Actor for The Brutalist.
Yeah.
But he doesn't speak Hungarian.
Yeah.
And he had Hungarian editor that knows the language. He used AI to correct some of the accent and pronunciation.
That isn't what I could do in it.
Exactly, it's amazing. But then you come and wonder who actually won the Oscar? AI?
Yeah, or the editor.
He did, or the editor.
I suppose it's a team.
Then as a producer, you want to make it as real as possible. Yeah, it's a tool.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go against it, nor I'd take away the.
Couldn't go against it. It's going to be like the robot can't go against the robot.
Absolutely.
It's in the Matrix. You see what happened in the Matrix?
Yeah.
That's what happens when you go against the robot. You can't. I've got you. I know you're watching this. With your robot.
The algorithm is watching you.
Algorithm is not watching me as much as I would like. Maybe this will tip the boat. Speaking of that, have you got any hot takes? Try and get me viral if you don't mind. Say something outlandish.
Outlandish. Yeah, don't go to Cancun. Go to the other part of Mexico, the other coast in the Pacific. That's my best advice I would give you.
Okay.
Instead of staying in the Caribbean, try the Pacific. It's cheap.
What's wrong with Cancun?
It's just too crowded, isn't it? And it's just full of tourists.
Yeah.
More expensive.
I hate tourists.
And then you can get assaulted there. I mean, you can get assaulted anywhere in the world. Not only in yeah.
We just start fighting.
So you be prepared, but yeah, don't go to the Caribbean, go to the Pacific.
Oh yeah. Have you had to adapt your style at all in making films? I know you finished this feature film and now you want to distribute it. Are you still filming while you're here?
I recently finished a music video that's going to get released. I don't know when this gets released, but it's more. Check it out.
This will either be released tomorrow or the week after.
So tomorrow, yeah. So
If this is released tomorrow, just know I've got a lot of fucking editing to do today.
Okay. For when I just shot a music video. The band is 4, so it should be out there on socials. I've been trying to get to know the community. It's like finding the people to work with.
Yeah.
At first,
What type of people would you look for to, like, what do you look for in a person to work with, or what do you look for in a community? And what would you look for?
they're passionate about the story. That's probably the first thing I looked into. And then they have a clear path of where they're going, not a path that they're following or somebody's necessarily that's made it or has gone through that path before, but they know where they want to go with their stories. In this case, I'm a cinematographer and I like jumping into projects and collaborating and photographing stories, ideas. So
how would you sum that up?
Well, I'm looking for passionate people who wants to tell their stories, and they're looking for somebody's on their camera to bring that vision to life with lighting, camera movement, and actions on scene.
I love that.
I would say that. And they're everywhere. It doesn't have to do with nationality. People passionate about telling their stories.
In that case,
Yeah.
what's the wildest project you've ever been a part of?
The largest,
The wildest?
wildest,
Have you got any stories? I'm fishing for a story.
the wildest project that I've been part of. This music video where we had to blow up a clock.
A clock? What's the concept?
Time, the idea of time. I always like time. This tattoo.
Let's get eyes on that.
I even asked the artist, hey, where's a place where you can hide it? And I didn't want people to see it.
Base for a confident tattoo,
So
isn't
the idea of the project was to It's 3, and the song talks about we've got 3 days left to be together. So there's dancing, these 2 lovers that they can find each other, and they go looking around themselves, and then they end up dancing. But there's this watch that explodes because they don't have time left.
Cool.
Yeah, I think
That's a cool idea. And you blew up the clock.
we blew up the clock.
Was it like, I don't know if you've seen Looney Tunes. No, that's Coyote. And he's chasing the, like Roadrunner, that's what it's called. And he's got the and it goes like that, but it always blows up him instead.
It wasn't like that red box, the detonator, but we did have a detonator.
Yeah.
The funny thing about it was that we didn't have a zoom lens.
So you just had to sit next to it.
Not complete next to it, but in a very dangerous, at a very dangerous distance. So we had to leave the camera there.
Were you completely covered in soot afterwards, and all your hair was out like that?
No, we did cover the camera, and it was exciting being there, waiting for it to detonate the clunk. And then obviously we recorded in
Slow-mo, yeah.
So yeah.
It's nice.
But I don't know, being on set always crazy. It's always a different experience. And if you're jumping on set and you're not willing to learn or seeking to learn something new, then I don't know what the purpose is.
What's the point?
But every
to get a dollar. But there's easier ways to make money than doing the grueling hours of being on set, isn't there? If you just want some quick cash, you gotta have some enjoyment for it.
Definitely, it's tough being on set. I mean, I was cold times. They can be tough.
Yeah. When's that coming out then? That video? When is it by?
Thursday.
On Thursday. It'll be out.
On Voir, but this other video I'm telling you about, it's already out. You can look it up.
Oh, great. What's it called?
Online. It's called Tres, like 3, by Matilde.
Can I use a clip of it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Let's say if you were the interviewer, what would you ask yourself?
What would I ask myself? I would say something that I would want to know about myself, but I know myself. It's a tough one. I'm afraid of asking myself. The toughest time, the toughest breakdowns has been when I look at the mirror and then I go realizing.
I have a breakdown when I look in the mirror as well sometimes.
When I look in the mirror, after I've done something or I need to reflect upon something, and I look in the mirror and I go, oh shit, you ruined it. And then you start just ranting against you. So I don't know.
Your own worst enemy.
Something
about yourself.
Particular about myself, but I would ask, yeah, I don't know, man.
That's interesting what you're saying about looking in the mirror. That's what triggers thoughts of negative thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest tragedies, the Greek tragedy, was finding your own, realizing yourself, no? And it's one of the toughest things to do, to be able to acknowledge all this person that you are, and that you're looking at with all of its mistakes, with all of the good.
But I have to do that to change, right? I feel like with this, for example, it's an exercise in cringe sometimes, just watching back the footage, watching myself. I don't ever cringe for the other person, but I see myself and I think, gosh, that is how I'm perceived differently to how I see myself.
Yeah.
But to do that, I have to change how I'm perceived, which is important for what I'm doing with this.
Yeah.
I need to have some sort of a certain type of presence when I'm interviewing people. I have to look at myself with a critical eye and suffer through it. Now that's pretty close to me at the moment because I'm doing that every week.
Yeah.
Part of that looking in the mirror and being like, I maybe even don't like this person. It's not very nice, but what's the alternative? Like, distract yourself, not face who you are. How do you improve then?
Maybe after that brief moment of having this tragedy reflection in the mirror and ranting, it comes this realization of saying, okay, yeah, not only you're enough, but it's all you have yourself.
Yeah.
So work with it, work with what you have, and enjoy it. And also something that I've come to learn is that you have to be grateful for what you have. Even that opportunity of looking at yourself in the mirror and realizing this, because lots of people just pass by their lives without ever stopping and giving themselves that particular time and realizing what's inside and what all these questions are, which we haven't asked the question to myself yet.
To be honest, I think you didn't answer the question, but you gave an answer. And I feel like I've learned a little bit more about you from that. So
okay,
I'd call that a success.
All right. Fair enough.
Have you got anything to plug?
Stay tuned for that Voir video. It was definitely lots of fun. One take that we decided to shoot in the middle of a party. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Upcoming dates, we'll have the trailer of the feature film, because it takes a long time to do a feature film. So even though we shot it 2 years ago, we are just starting to release the content, sending it to festivals. And then after that, probably it'll take another year or so before it actually reaches the audiences. So yeah,
Stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. I will see you next Thursday at 6 p.m. It's been Wagwan Abel. Over and out.